Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Beyond the Headlines. It's December 5, 20 days before Christmas Day, a time for reflection, giving, and thinking about what kind of impact we leave on the people around us. I'm DJ Moises. Today, we're going to talk about student leadership with Hans Balila and Maui, Azarraga Cruz, past and present student council presidents of the University of San Carlos. We'll explore about how they balance academic and leadership, navigate the challenges of being part of Gen Z, make tough decisions, and lead with integrity, all while staying true to who they are. So Hans and Maui, welcome to the show.
Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Afternoon
Good afternoon, day.
Afternoon there.
Wrong start. So maybe you can greet your followers before we start.
Okay, mayroon po tayo ako na si Hans Balila, and thank you so much for inviting us here in this interview. We really appreciate for Sansa for giving us a platform to talk about our advocacies as well as our history of leadership with the youth here in Cebu.
What he said. Hi, my name is Maui Cruz. I'm the current president of the USC Supreme Student Council. And like what Hans said, we're very grateful to be here, and we thank Sunstar for giving us the platform and the opportunity to be able to shed light on very important issues plaguing a lot of students here in Cebu.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of issues that are plaguing a lot of students, a lot of our viewers, including myself, are actually curious because leading a student council is not just an extracurricular activity.
true.
It's already synonymous to having work. No? So how do you balance, at least when you were a student and now that you're still a student, how do you balance the pressures of academics and also your job as student council presidents?
Honestly, I would be lying if I were to say that it has been easier for me. It was easy for me. But the truth is, there are so many things that I had to juggle, so many things of myself that I had to sacrifice just to fulfill my constitutional mandate as a president, as well as ensuring that I comply to my academic requirements. But the thing about leadership, being a president of a student council in particular, is that it's not a sole individual effort. It's a collective effort. We put our trust to the masses, and we make sure that the burdens of responsibilities in the council are not only with the president, but of course with the officers as well as the students who continue to trust the advocacies of the council. So it's a united effort to ensure that, it's not just one person doing all of the job. It's everyone doing it.
And how about you, Maui?
Siguro bilang estudyante ngayon, masasabi ko na mahirap siya. Syempre, it is not an easy thing to be able to navigate both academics, duties and responsibilities bilang isang student leader, and then doing activism as well. Pero siguro, a lot of the reasons why activists or a lot of the reasons why student leaders take up the positions that they're in right now is because they recognize man good kung unsa ka important, how important it is. Sorry. They recognize the importance of their work. Ako personally, I would not be in student leadership positions if I didn't recognize kung gaano ka importante it is to do the things that we do in council bilang members ng NDMOs, so on and so forth, because the campaigns that we carry, they impact the lives of so many students, not just in USC but also beyond. So even though mahirap maging student leader, pinupush through pa rin.
Well, I I do agree. No, I also believe that the true leadership path is the road less traveled. No, so in your case, because you also juggle not just your academics, you also have your student leader tasks. You also have your personal life. You also have your mental health, and maybe you also have your love life. No, so among all these, no, which one thing suffers the most?
Thinking time.
There's too many to think.
Ang dami.
There's too many to think, actually.
Sige.
But I guess there's too many to specify them. I guess
Just
all I-
one suffers the most yun. Among all these,
Oh.
no, academics, personal life, mental health, love life.
It was definitely my personal life. It was so difficult for me to keep up with my barkada and also spend time with them because at some point I had to choose between my duties to the student body as well as my academics. And the thing is, our duties as student council president, it's not something that we can just choose not to tend to because we have a mandate to uphold the rights of the students and we asked them for their votes with the promise that we will be serving them no matter what it takes. So it was unfortunately my social, my personal life that I had to put into a reserve, I would say, during my terms as a student council president.
And you were smiling, so seems like you
I
have
was
something to
smiling.
share.
Ikaw ha? Siguro same kay Hans na grabe talaga yung apekto niya sa personal life ko. Also, my mental health, to be honest. When you take up a lot of student leadership positions, you have to sacrifice a lot of time. You have to sacrifice a lot of effort, and then you have to really focus on what the work that you're doing because it's really important, man. Good. Like I said earlier, it affects the lives of so many students. So when you have that burden on your shoulders, you really need to kanang work jud towards it. So it was really mental health and it was really personal life for me. I think one of the biggest reasons kung ano nag-close mi ni Hans is because we worked in a lot of the same organizations. So parang the friendship formed there.
Trauma
But
bond.
nag-trauma bond kami. Pero outside of that, siguro, ayun, it's been difficult for me to be able to contact family. I don't get to call them as often. And syempre, grabe yung stress, especially sa mental health. I say this in consideration of the fact that I was diagnosed with depression in my earlier college years. So mental health is something that I really, really advocate for. Pero makakaya rin naman. Don't let that scare you.
Sige. So, while I am just 5 years ahead of you, lying,
Yes.
no? But I wear the hat of a parent. No? Okay. Did leadership affect your grades?
Sige, go.
Siguro, siguro for me, I would say no. I graduated magna cum laude from the University
But you
of
could
St.
have been
Carlos.
summa cum laude. No,
I
no,
don't
just
think-
kidding. Sige, continue.
It felt like a very difficult task for me to graduate with Latin honors for my program, especially since I was two-time president. There were plenty of responsibilities that I had to go through because I would say the political landscape of USC during my terms was very tumultuous. It was very chaotic. There were so many things
Yes.
going on. She would agree because
Yes.
she was with me throughout those. But
Such as,
tuition fee
Go.
increases, the most controversial one, in fact. And I would say the thing about me is, even though it was affecting my social life, I never made it affect my academics as well as my mental health. Even as a president, I always made sure to have 8 hours of sleep, no matter how difficult the things have been, because I think at the end of the day, my body is my capital for student leadership. If I don't take care of it, eventually I will fail as a leader because if I get sick, I can't do anything. I can't uphold my mandate. I can do my responsibilities. So at some point, I realized that and made sure that throughout my terms, I took care of myself very well as with my academic responsibilities.
For me, siguro, I'll have to say na opposite yung coping mechanisms namin ni Hans. We often joke about this all the time. He says na, if he gets 8 hours of sleep, I do not sleep at all. I'm the type of person na when it comes to balancing ACADS and kanang org works, especially sa council, I try my best to be able to manage both. One tip that Hans gave me before is na don't do org work when there's like allotted time for class. So during class times, I try my best not to do council work.
Do you?
No, but sometimes when you're in council, man, good.
It's like
a
24/7.
24/7 job. You have to be on call at any given moment. Kahit 2 a.m. yan, you're working on a pub mat, or you're working on a resolution, or you're working on a letter. To any office, and then after that akads na naman, but I'm very grateful that in my department, at least, shout out to the Department of Anthropology, Sociology, and History. Our teachers are very forgiving. They love and are so passionate about our course, and they really take the time to help the students, Jude. So if there's one thing that I'm grateful for, it is their support, because all throughout my run in council, all throughout my work as an activist, they have been so supportive. And yan lang siguro, if I can say, Jude, na if wala ko nag-anthro, I do not know if I would have pushed through with being an activist. And I don't think that I say this a lot to my teachers. I don't think I've said it at all to them, but maybe hopefully they see this and then they get to realize how much all of them have impacted me, have affected me, have taught me so much. Shout out to
Yeah, you can. I was about to ask.
shout out to lahat ng mga profs ko before, si Doc Lenny, si Doc Hera, si Ma'am Ding, si Miss March, si Sir Dennis, ang dami, ang dami. Okay na. Shout out, Dash.
No, I could see the reminder, no?
Yes.
The nudge.
Sige.
Yeah. Anyhow, si Maui already articulated earlier, no, that you value student leadership a lot because of the difference, no, that it's also making not just for students in USC but also outside. But how about for you, Hans? No, what was your motivation for you to want the top spot, no, in that student council?
Honestly, becoming a student council president wasn't exactly something that I had planned in mind when I got into college. I always thought to myself that if I were to get in San Carlos, in college in particular, governance, because I thought to myself that, everyone deserves quality education. That is true. San Carlos provides quality education, but it's not accessible to everybody.
True.
And education is a basic human right. Everyone must have access to it. So because of that, I thought to myself, nah, someone has to step up. And that's what I did. I took up positions, I participated in political engagements in the university, and that motivated me to fight for the rights of the people. And speaking of people, they're also my motivation. Seeing people, tell you that they're very grateful to see so many people united to campaign for their rights, especially those who are working jobs or barely capable of paying their tuition fees. Those things, those reminders of why I fight for them, they keep me motivated. Seeing the impact of the work that I do, it's something that reminds me that whatever I'm doing, it's meaningful. It contributes something to society, and therefore I must keep on going as someone who is fighting for the future that we collectively deserve.
You're a friend of Michelle D.
Yes.
I know.
Just kidding.
No, because she's saying not just education, but quality
Yes,
education.
I've heard that before.
Now, for Maui, you've mentioned about at least making the effort to not mix class time and council time. No, but what else do you do to keep yourself sane and grounded?
I work.
That was not the answer I was expecting. Okay.
I like I've found keeping myself busy really keeps me sane because it keeps the negative thoughts at bay. Pero siguro beyond work, I really value the time that I have with the people around me. I really make sure to make time for my loved ones. So, malalaman mo kapag I really value you if I am able to make time for you despite all of the hectic schedules going on.
So that's your love language, no?
Quality time.
Yes, actually. Pwede naman lahat.
Lahat sila or or the love language? Just
The
kidding.
love language. The love language.
Sige. Now, with respect to kanang leadership lessons, because I know some of our viewers are also aspiring to be where you are today in terms of the difference you're making. No, so what one leadership lesson you learned the hard way?
The hard way.
Siguro in my case, it's always to put trust in your constituents because as what we discussed earlier, the duties of a student council president in particular, it's very heavy. There will be so many things that you will have to deal with and you will have to face so many problems in all fronts. So at that point, what you need to do is to put trust in your constituents that they are just as capable as you are, so that you don't take up all of the tasks. You entrust the tasks to them, you entrust that they can do whatever is needed for the council, because at the end of the day, being a student council president, I don't think it makes us any special. It just puts us in a place
Cool.
where we have a platform to inspire people, and that's why I'm emphasizing the word inspire here, because as a student council president, you're not supposed to do everything. You're supposed to encourage everyone to do things. It's about letting people know that they can do something, they can effect change, and it's only a matter of realization that they can do that so that we can actually reach whatever it is that we're aiming for. Because at the end of the day, we cannot get free education if it's just the president who's working. Free education required the efforts of so many universities, so many students, so many officials, government officials, or even student council officers. And that in itself is a testament that, no man is an island at the end of the day. And that's something that I had to learn very early on in my terms as an officer of the student council, because every day you deal with different issues and you can't exactly resolve all of them. So you entrust them to other people and just be sure that you're also there for them when they try to participate or at least try to contribute in the things that you are trying to resolve.
And how about you now?
I will have to agree with Hans. I feel like when I took up the role of president in USC, I feel like that was a recurring conversation between the two of us. Na you cannot do things alone, that you have to trust the people around you, trust your officers, and trust that the masses will have your back. Siguro that's one thing that I've had a lot of difficulty with, especially hanggang ngayon, throughout my months or throughout my years in council. Siguro mahirap maglihok. Nagtaglish na, nagkonyo
No,
na.
tagbis.
Tagbis. Mahirap it's hard to push through, especially when you're under a lot of public scrutiny. Pero if there's one thing that I've learned, it is to trust that the people will have your back, that to trust that the people will know that you're fighting the good fight. You're fighting the good fight. What else? Siguro, one thing that I can say, siguro for students, is na oftentimes kasi students are told that they have no space in politics. They have no space discussing these issues, and that what we should do is to stay at home, to study, to focus on our academics, and to keep quiet, diba? Yan yung parating sinasabi sa atin. But how can we, when these social issues so clearly, violently, and directly shape so many aspects of our lives? How can we focus on our books when it is our our homes getting flooded? How can we focus on our grades when it is our classrooms that are collapsing? And how can we focus on academics when it is our families that bear the brunt of so many corruption issues? And then you start to learn, especially when you continue as a student leader that a lot of the issues that you're facing bilang estudyante, they're connected to the larger society. Na yung mga issues natin bilang estudyante, they're also a reflection of the larger systemic na issues that are happening beyond the four walls of our university. And that's something that was very difficult for me to grasp as a first year. When I first got into activism, that was something that parang na mind blown ako talaga. Because when you start as an activist, when you start as a student leader, especially for me, I started because my family was having trouble paying for our tuition. So, grabe yung naapektuhan talaga ako sa tuition and other fees increase. I was also struggling with mental health issues. Like, I was struggling with depression. And then, I start to realize that these issues are systemic. They're connected to a broader pattern of issues. And so, bilang estudyante, our role is to link arms with the rest of the oppressed sectors in society. So, maon na. That's something that I really had to learn. And it took me so long to understand. But siguro that's a huge part of why I'm doing what I'm doing and why a lot of activists continue to persist despite a lot of difficulties in life.
Actually, that's an amazing level of depth, that you are also gaining as you go through the journey. Because back during my time, I was also a student leader. But for me, aspect is pang tusok ng yellow.
Aspect.
Oh,
Ano yun?
guys, he tried to make a joke.
That took me a while, actually.
Now, sige. Every Filipino home, there's this dynamic, na kanang it's either they will say anak, ayaw na anak kay kapoy na kaayo, or some parents, they would also be on the side that we are so proud of you, so in your case, so this is the question for both of you, how do your parents react to the level of responsibility that you carry? I think Maui should start.
Ano, si Hans is laughing. Hans has been laughing. Feel ko ano yung answer niya dito.
Sige, okay.
Oh, this is interesting because my dad is a police officer. He was a police officer. He's a retired cop now. So at some point, it was very difficult for me to tell my parents that I am an activist because, it's almost always a black and white thing. Like the state forces and activists, they're not always on good terms. And I guess that would have been also my situation for my mom and dad. But the thing is, it was never about my activism for my parents. For me, it was always about a matter of safety and security for them. I feel like they understand the things that I was fighting for because they also came from less fortunate circumstances when they were still growing up and when they were raising our family. And I guess in some manner, they understood and sympathized for the causes that I was forwarding with the masses. But yes, it is sometimes a difficult conversation to have with your parents, though, because one thing that they might not always realize is we're fighting for a future that we will inherit as the youth. We're also fighting for their current circumstances because they're part of the workforce, they're part of the working class, and us, we're about to inherit a society that's marred with corruption, that's marred with so many political issues that remain unresolved because of political dynasties who continue to perpetuate the systemic issues that we have. So I guess it becomes an effort of ceaseless and tireless persuasion of the family. Now, what we're doing is we're fighting for them. We're fighting also for the future that will have as we enter the society as future professionals, officials, government leaders, for that matter.
Siguro on my end, when I started as an activist, actually, before I moved to Cebu from Iloilo, sinabihan ako ng nanay ko na wag akong maging aktivista. Wag akong
Look at you now.
mag-join sa mga rallies, to never step foot on the streets. Yan yung talagang warning niya sa akin. And siguro, 3 years later, look at me na. Ayan, I'm on the streets halos every month. And siguro one driving force. I feel like I talked about this before with my friends na I'd always get asked when we're doing protests. Why my voice is so loud? How come in all of the photos that you see of me, like grabe talaga yung mukha ko, galit na galit. There is no, you are not going to see a photo of me online na hindi ako galit. Especially sa rallies. You're not gonna see.
Except if we do this, not today. Like,
Ayan. Yan na lang.
Okay. Continue.
Oo,
Okay, continue.
Ayun. You're not gonna see a photo of me na hindi ako galit, na that I don't scream or shout or agitate to the top of my lungs, because every single time that I step foot on the streets, ayun, nakangiti ako doon. Every single time na I step foot on the streets, I think about my mom. I think about my family, whom I love very, very deeply. Oftentimes, when you start out as an activist, at least for me, I started out for, let's say, hindi naman siya selfish na reasons, but I started out for reasons that hit very, very close to home. I was so worried about my mom. I was so tired of the fact that she works 24/7. She's a single mom who has to provide for 3 kids, and that's not easy. It's not easy. So I have so much respect for her. And every time I go to Iloilo, I see her hands na susugatan sila because she works very, very hard at her job. Every time I step foot on the streets, I think of that. I think of my mom. I think of how hard she's working.
What does she do?
She's a doctor. She works at a government hospital. And ayun, nagjo-duty siya parate. Parate siyang hindi na sa bahay. We don't get to see her as often. And when we do, parate siyang pagod. And I don't want my mom to continue living that life. So aside from working really, really hard to graduate and being able to provide for my family, I want to be able to fight for a better future for her and for my siblings. I have a sister who's currently taking up law, and I have a brother who's taking up BS biology. And I love them so, so much. And growing up with them, seeing how hard they worked. Actually, when I moved to Cebu, they saved up to pay for my tuition, my siblings. And that is something na hindi ko talaga makakalimutan. But in reality, students should not be saving up to pay for tuitions. That should not have happened to my siblings, because everyone is deserving of quality and accessible education. My mom shouldn't have to pay in order for us to get the education that we rightfully deserve. So it is our duty then to be able to fight for a future na mabuti para sa kabataan. So ayun.
So now that it's clear to me why you are in this path, let's talk about you being led. No? So meaning it could be your experience. It can also be the experience of people your generation, no? So what leadership style, no? So whether it's parents or your workmates, or your professors, what leadership style is preferred by your generation, no? What are the approaches that you think will be more effective, no?
I would say it's more on collective leadership.
Yes.
It's empowering every single person who is involved in your organization or in your campaigns to actually have ownership of the outcomes of their projects or whatever it is that they're doing. Because one thing that I've noticed for our generation, especially as a psych major, is that we don't like to be micromanaged. We don't like people to keep a keen eye on whatever it is we're doing. We want to actually learn things by ourselves, and we want to take part in the process of figuring things out. And that's why I think in the context of corporate, that would be providing autonomous to their employees, and in activism, that would be empowering the masses and our fellow activists in recognizing that every single contribution that we do actually helps us in claiming or perhaps acquiring whatever it is that we're intending to have as an outcome. So yes, if you were to ask me what is my preferred leadership, it's always collective leadership. It's putting our trust that the people working with us is just as capable as we are, is just as effective as we are when it comes to working. Because I think one of the common pitfalls when it comes to leadership is we tend to have this idea that we have to be the best person.
True.
But the thing is, it's not about being the best. It's about making people realize or be in their best. It's about inspiring people, because at the end of the day, we can't achieve great things if it's just you, if it's just your sole effort. So yes, I would say that we have to delegate, to participate in the processes, to involve everybody in whatever it is that we're doing.
So, because part of collaborative leadership is kind of consultation, gathering of information, and then giving everybody the seat on the table, no, for them to be able to participate in the discussion, in the conversation, and even the decision making. Pero how do you draw the line when you say this is still collaborative or this is already analysis paralysis?
Analysis paralysis.
Meaning we've been discussing about this for 10 years already. I'm just
Struggle
kidding.
over it.
Oh, diba? Because that's also there's a time in which we sit on the table, we make a discussion, and then we decide. Diba? And then in a lot of cases, at least from my experience, not everybody is on board. No, but at least let's move na. But there are also cases that I would see that because there's just a lot of conversations going on, it's been 100 years now, and no decision has been done. So how do you draw the line where you say, this is already analysis paralysis? It's time to move forward, whether everybody's on board or not.
Siguro in the context of, let's say, council, kasi when you work in council, you have to make a lot of difficult decisions as a body, Jud. And in council, you're going to have disagreements. There are going to be a lot of struggle of ideas, especially like the meetings will last until God knows what. I was not gonna say what time, but he said it. Pero ayun, mahihirapan kayo sa discussions. But I'd like to think na it's those discussions that kanang prove that we all care about doing our jobs.
So when you say, this is already 2 a.m. now, we discussed about this already. How can we move this forward? How do you draw that line?
At the end of the day, kasi we all have the same goal. It is to be able to serve our constituents. It is to be able to protect and promote the rights and welfare of all students. And when you debate on certain matters, that is what you have to think about, especially.
And it means it's important.
Yeah, it means it's important. In order to stop, bureaucratic na kaayo, parlia jud, but we put it to a vote, parlia jud. Pero at the end of the day, we remind ourselves, yun na, is what is the best for our constituents. Unsa ang pinaka maka-move forward sa ato ang council, sa ato ang student body, and then you just go from there.
And then the other thing also, because both of you are visible, diba? So that means part of the territory are also people having an opinion about you.
Yes.
So how do you also differentiate personal criticism from constructive feedback?
Okay. I guess one thing that I would say is the politics of students in San Carlos is very different from our local politics. One thing that I've noticed is it tends to be very constructive. It tends to be healthy. It tends to be critical, but in a manner that is actually contributing to whatever is the situation at the university.
I thought because you don't have flood control projects. I'm just kidding. Okay, continue.
So when it comes to constructive and personal criticisms, you get used to it because in USC, it's the norm. I guess Maui would agree when I say that every month, perhaps, or every semester, as a president, you would get feedback from student publications, from students, or even the political parties themselves regarding the nature of your leadership, the effectiveness of your leadership.
True.
And that's something that we very much welcome.
Yes.
And there are times where personal and constructive criticisms overlap, but what's important as a leader is you know how to filter the personal attacks and see the constructive value in them. There may be times now students may give inputs that is not exactly worded out right, or perhaps it's not exactly valid, I would say, and then like saying it ambiguously na lang. But the fact that there is feedback, that means that there must be something that you can improve on. And that's something that I feel like should be fostered for our local governments, because I appreciate the politics in USA so much, because the criticisms actually work. The officials actually change something. Well, at least for students, not probably not the administration. I don't know. But when it comes to local government, I think if we were to practice that type of tradition, that type of culture, we would be very effective, because the masses have inputs, and the reason why they have inputs when it comes to leadership is because they have experienced the outcomes of that leadership rather. Like, the reason why they have criticisms is because they have experienced negatives that the government can improve on. So I don't really see why our government right now in particular is very aversive when it comes to criticisms, when in fact those are supposedly inputs on how they can better serve the constituents, the people they ask votes from. So that's why I would say, although there are times criticisms may seem like a personal attack, what's important here is you know how to scour through those criticisms and find whichever is constructive and whatever actually helps you improve the nature of your leadership.
I think that also applies in even in life in general, no? Because things happen, whether good or bad, and it's up to us on what we do with what happened to better us now. So that's why we cease from becoming victims of our circumstance. Now, this one is in the context of choosing between a popular decision and the right decision. Was there a moment in your journey in which you had to make that choice?
You wanna say?
Siguro, marami actually.
Just one.
Sorry, are we running out of time?
Yeah.
Oh no, 20 more minutes.
Okay.
Ayun. So, ayun. Siguro when it comes to the council, there are so many decisions that you have to make. There are so many kanang difficult choices that you will be forced to make, especially as a student body bilang ano. Pero siguro yung masasabi ko lang dyan is na ayun, you'll be forced to make a lot of tough calls.
Yeah, because because it's a popularity vote.
Yes.
Diba? So popular decisions matter to a certain extent, no?
Yes.
Yes.
It does,
So how
but
do you draw that
at the
line?
end of the day, you have principles. You have
Oo,
political
oo.
ideologies.
Yung importante is that the decisions that you're making, they're reflective sa students that you are serving. Siguro for the case ng USC, something that I always like to or like we always like to remind ourselves is na it is easy to make. Siguro when we talk about popular vote, yan yung easiest decision to make. But
It's not always valid.
it's not always, ayun, yung sinabi ni Hans. And the best decisions are never going to be easy. Yung rights natin bilang estudyante, yung human rights natin in general, they are never going to be freely given to you. They are won. They are won by the students, by the masses who are militant and unafraid. And sometimes these decisions are going to be very costly. Sometimes these decisions come with a lot of repercussions. And sometimes these battles are very, very long. It takes years. It's not,
Dark
you will
Cruz.
have problems. You will have problems that will not be solved through
term.
one term alone. Pero yung importante is that you continue to organize, you continue to mobilize, you continue to collectivize, you continue to trust that the masses will be with you, that the students will always have your back. Ayun siguro. Perhaps Hans can add. Would you like
Actually,
to mention any?
there are so many.
Seems like there's something you want to mention.
Siguro, like speaking from my personal experience, there were so many things that I had to stomach, in spite of the popular pressure, because in particular on the council, there has been like so many issues going on about it, especially with our agreements with the administration,
Yes.
especially when we campaign for student rights,
Yes.
and I guess when it comes to things like those, I just uh, remind myself that I got into this position because the students believed in the principles that I told them I possess and will be campaigning for if I were to get in these positions. There will be times that you will be outnumbered, but just because you're outnumbered, that doesn't necessarily mean that your opinion is any less valid. That is why earlier I emphasized the importance of principles and political alignment, because if you compared for tuition and other fees increase when you run as president, but then the students agreed to tuition and other fees increase, that doesn't necessarily mean that it is valid. So while the students may voice out their opinions that are right, it is our responsibility to convince them, to persuade them that this is not exactly congruent to the principles that we have, because there are students who struggle. So at the end of the day, it's believing in your principles, believing in your political alignment, and persuading people why exactly is it that your opinion or your principles for this matter is valid and most representative of the rights of the people.
So internally, so this is no longer about kanang the leaders also that you work with. So internally, how do you handle the backlash internally?
Do we?
Backlash? Okay, sige.
In my case, I tend to be a very rational leader. To an extent where I no longer process things emotionally. I think
Yes, he is.
Maui would agree with that.
Nonchalant king.
Maui and I are very opposites on that end.
True.
Maui, in my case, I tend to not process things emotionally. I just try to think of it logically. So, if ever there are backlash, if ever there are inputs that get too overwhelming for me, I try to reduce them. I try to intellectualize them. I try to see as I've said, I try to filter out the personal attacks and try to see the value in them, because at the end of the day, the pressure that we're getting, the discussions that people are having regarding our leadership, they're necessary.
Yes.
Contradictions are very necessary for us to propel forward, because if we just stick with the status quo, there will be no changes, and it is only through changes we can actually see improvements in life. So at the end of the day, I always remind myself, no, these people do not necessarily hate you, it's just what you did that they hate. So, ayun.
So what was the most, and both of you or any of you can answer, what was the most difficult criticism that you received as president no, of the student council, and how did it change the way you lead eventually?
Ikaw, Maui, do you wanna speak?
Siguro, mahilig ako sa gentle parenting. Yung ano ko, I don't want to be too pushy on my officers, on my council. And siguro, the best criticism that a friend of mine told me, I think, earlier this year or earlier during my term, is that I'm very soft, na I need to be more assertive bilang leader, that I need to put my foot down, and it's something that I still have a difficult time navigating kasi soft ako as a person eh. Like Hans said, we're two different people. He's very assertive in
Just
nature.
a dictator. That's
Like, maybe.
That's what they called me when I was
Maybe.
president.
But at the end of the day, another thing that I had a very difficult time with navigating siguro as president is na if there are times na I try to put my foot down, I'm seen as too bossy. It's very misogynistic in nature, man good. I was also called a dictator. Imagine, ako pa yung tatawagin dictator na, oh, di ba?
Extreme, no?
Yeah, and it's a difficult thing for me kasi I don't think na, I feel like, especially as a leader, there are so many times na you have to put your foot down. There are so many times na you have to be assertive because what you're doing is for student rights and welfare, and hindi yan negotiable. Especially when you're negotiating, when you're dealing with very repressive administrations, when you're dealing with very repressive systems. You need to have a backbone, Jude, and you need to ensure na dili ka mahadlok to speak out. That's one thing na I've had a difficult time with before, especially as a counselor. Back mga earlier council days ko, I had such a hard time speaking out, but now na we know kung unsa ka bugat ang weight of it all, it just comes naturally na.
So speak. Oh, you want to
Sorry.
say something?
So in addition to that, one thing that I would like to add lang is, siguro from the perspective of the youth, especially as activists, people tend to say that we're too ambitious. We're
Yes.
we tend to campaign for the grand things in life. But I think, what is the youth if not for optimism for a better future, right? What is the youth if not wanting for a better future that they will inherit? So I guess that's one thing that is necessary for us. Like, as leaders, we need to be visionaries. We
True.
want to visualize a society that's actually developed, and we can only do that if we're ambitious.
True.
That's it.
Sige, one story each, no? And this one is a particular moment in which you had to choose between friendship and professionalism, and which one won?
Oh, in my case,
Sige, one story each.
Ikaw,
Sige.
you want to speak?
No, ikaw.
By friendship and professionalism, there were like aspects of my life, like which one I had to.
Was there a time, no, that you just have to say, "Oh my gosh, this is a choice between friendship and the
okay.
work I'm doing"?
I guess in my case, my barkada, shout out to my barkada, by the way, Payog.
You can beat them.
Yes,
Oh, let's just call them barkada.
yes, my barkada.
Okay, sige.
Because there's 14 of them, so it's too many to name.
Okay.
Okay, so yes, my barkada is really big. And the thing about my barkada is they're very hands-on when it comes to my campaigns, which I very
Yes,
much
they are.
appreciate, They were very present to me in my life. In fact, they got to a point where they were also in the council because
Yes.
of my leadership. And oftentimes, like, perhaps the lines between friendship and professionalism may blur, but as a person who is very assertive, very authoritative, I always make sure to contextualize things. If we're working, we are working. I will be not doing you any
True.
favors just because you're a friend. In fact, my friends always had this sentiment. Now, I tend to be a very different person when it comes to organizations,
True.
like very maldito now and
Well-
stuff. But as a friend, like, I am very objective, and I tend to be I am approachable to them, in fact. But it's just so that when it comes to organizations, like, I switch off because our responsibilities, they're not just things now we can easily dismiss, we can
True.
just invalidate or put in a lesser value, because rights are at stake. Student rights
True.
are at stake. So we have to be serious about it. So if you're getting into the council, be sure that when you're doing council work, it's council work. It's nothing personal.
Okay, sige. Now, there is no such thing as a perfect system, no? Just as there is no perfect leader and no
Yes.
perfect leadership. So every once in a while, leaders make kanang compromises. So one story each, Dasan, kasi escape na baka earlier, but maybe you go first. That you benefited personally, but not necessarily the student body. A decision that you make that, okay, I'll compromise this time, this will benefit me, but not necessarily the student body. Nobody's perfect. Ding, 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 ding.
I will say though that there's genuinely no story that
okay.
comes to mind, especially when it comes to council work or activism work, because I always view it as something I do to serve, Jude. Genuinely. Baka sasabihin nyo na, hala, performative. Pero hindi talaga. Genuinely, nothing comes to mind. In fact, when you're in council, when you're an activist, you oftentimes sacrifice. There's so many sacrifices that you have to make as a leader.
Nothing to gain, everything to lose.
Can I just say? Yeah, it's
And you're not
siguro-
paid also.
We're
No.
not. It's a common misconception na bayad kami bilang estudyante or bilang
Excuse me?
to go to rallies, to go to protests, but that's not the case. Oftentimes we have to sacrifice our safety. We have to sacrifice our own money and
Not too much, it's very expensive.
Yeah, expensive
It's so
kayo, the
expensive.
travel, the everything. So maglisod jud me. So mao na especially sa activism, murag grabe kaayo ang sacrifice. You lose sleep over it. You lose time, time that I could be spending with friends or loved ones, time that I could also be spending on academics or exercised for council work, which is something that I do not regret at all. It's something that I deeply like kanang
But would you do it again?
ask me that in 3 months. Ask me that in 3 months. Well, ayun, mahirap siya, but it's the kind of exhaustion that makes life fulfilling. It's something that I would not trade anything for.
Now, your generation and partly my generation also are into social media, TikTok, etc. No, so and you work with a lot of people also in this space. No, so how do you see through people who, whether they truly enjoy leadership or they are just there because they simply want to be visible? Okay, diba? This is a social media age, Bea. Diba? So there are people who post on social media and they mean it, and there are just those who are just there for the clout. No? So in your peers, now, how do you discern na, visible rin yan tuyo? Or both?
Okay.
Or here for the job yun eh.
Siguro for my case, it's mostly on how they analyze issues. Because as leaders, you don't just get, I mean, at least in our case, in Maui and I's case, we didn't pursue positions in leadership without a good analysis of society. We got into our positions because we realized that there are issues and there must be something to be done about these things. And that's why in the university in particular, we really appreciate debates, we appreciate interviews, we appreciate arguments, because these things expose, well, not necessarily expose, highlight the principles and your analysis of any political issues going on. And I would say that a person who is only there for exposure wouldn't exactly put that much of an effort to understand the political undertones of the things that they're campaigning for, because they're there for personal reasons. They're not there to understand the lived realities of their constituents. Fortunately, though, in my case, it has never been a case wherein I met a leader who was only there for exposure. I was able to see the best in every leader that I encountered, and they always had some level of experience when it comes to injustices or oppression that led them into the position that they are at. And I guess that's one thing that I appreciate, because I think a lot of people would say that it's very selfish for them to campaign or to get into positions just because they experience their own level of injustice. But the thing is, that's just a stepping stone. At the end of the day, they will realize the larger issues that are associated with the injustices that they experienced, and this has led them into a position wherein they provided a platform to campaign not just for their own causes but also the causes of their constituents who got them in their positions.
And just to add, because I'm 5 years ahead of you. No, just kidding.
Very much. You can see that. You can see that.
No, but the other thing also that I get to see through that, and hopefully this is helpful to you and also to the viewers,
Yes.
is I also check where the hugot is coming from. Because chances are a person is normally involved or engaged at something that either this person is angry about this, or the reverse pod.
Indifferent.
The other side pod is the person is so grateful about something that they want others to also experience. So it normally has something to do with where it's coming from. And normally these are strong emotions. So either the space of gratitude, and so they want other people to experience it, or in the space of anger, that's why they don't want others to go through it. And so it becomes an advocacy.
Okay.
Normally, no. So now let's go into integrity. How common is cheating to students today?
Like,
It was.
No, not
What
cheating
sense?
love life. No, cheating academics. No, not love life.
Academics? I feel like
It is very
I feel
common.
like yeah, it's common.
And
And why is that
honestly,
so?
I have a very political analysis when it comes to students
someone
cheating.
Sige.
And one thing I've noticed in our generation is we are in a very competitive, fast-paced environment. We are demanded so many things from by this institution, by our curriculum, and students, they always have this inherent want to learn. Of course, I think it's inherent for everybody to gain knowledge. But the thing is, sometimes it gets too overwhelming. The institution demands so much of us just for us to become cheap labor for corporations to exploit. And they are led into desperate situations wherein they compromise their integrity just to comply with responsibilities because the education system does not really put an emphasis to our well-being. So honestly, I would tell you this as a psychology major and as someone who has come from a program that is very demanding when it comes to academics. So many students want to learn actually, but they are led to cheat because it gives them relief, like it gives them a sense of reprieve from the demands that they are experiencing too. So for me, even though cheating may seem like an issue, especially for instructors, I see it differently. I see it as the student being overwhelmed with the tasks that they are required to comply, and so they try to make up for it by making it seem as if they actually did well in school.
Ako, I have to agree with Hans in that sense. Especially na estudyante pa rin ako. Every
Don't ask me if I cheat now. I'm not gonna answer that.
we're on live.
Well, I guess it's good to graduate.
Oh my god! If he has profs watching, just know. Maybe you guys can ask him. Ako, I agree with Hans na a lot of students are just pushed by ang output-based education system. A lot of students right now, they're focused on receiving good grades. And I will say na, although I agree with Hans na every single student is in pursuit of knowledge. Every student wants to be able to learn. But because our system pushes us, or because our system is created in a certain manner, so many students are pushed to give up their integrity. And nakakasayang, diba?
Yes.
Kasi oftentimes, students, when they graduate, they're just made to be kanang exploited, into cheap labor. That's something that we talk about, especially sa Rise for Education. It's a symptom of colonial, commercialized, and fascist education. Colonial in a sense na sa grabe na kanang output-based education system. STEM students are favored more. The STEM courses are favored more because it's very easy to market these students once they graduate, and then graduate nila asa man sila mo adto most of the time
Transnational.
to foreign
companies.
nations where they are paid lower than the normal workers there. So at the end of the day, kanang we see the exploitation happening even as we are students pa lang, and as students who are about to become part of the workforce when we graduate. It's something that we always have to take mind of. Syempre, I know na it's such a huge jump from cheating and integrity to hala, Neolive education,
But it is
CCF,
that deep.
but it is connected. It is connected, guys. And these are topics, these are discussions that we have to continuously link and raise. We have to continuously talk about, especially in our classrooms, because the more that we realize this, the more na we can fight against these systems.
True.
And thank you for giving me the permission to talk about
Oh
it more.
my.
Alright.
He was waiting for it.
It was very fun.
Sige, go.
Pero in a nutshell, is cheating in class good or bad?
It's bad. I'd say that.
It's bad from a perspective that students wouldn't cheat in the first place had they been given more leniency when it comes to their academic
Yes.
requirements.
Okay. And sige, the context mango that I wanted to pursue that route because I am But
Did you cheat?
go ahead. So thank you because you're also giving me the reason to be like this. No?
You didn't answer the question.
True. And the reason why, because I'm actually on the other side, but my point is valid, your point is also valid. Ha? But what I'm just trying to say, what I'm also advocating, Manggod, is once we become government officials, it also requires a certain stamina
True.
that regardless of the forces, we are going to uphold what is right or wrong.
True.
Okay, my father, sige, now this is more, you might ask, where is the hugot coming from? I'm a product also of kanang government officials as parents. And I'm just fortunate because they happen to be on the honest side. And if there's anything that my father would tell me, and so this applies also when I was in school and even after school, it's one thing not to steal because you don't have an opportunity. And it's another not to steal, even if you can. So my translation on that when I was a student, so I have a hugot. It's
5
one
years
thing,
ago.
yeah. It's one thing. It's one thing not to cheat because I could not, and it's another not to cheat, even if I could. And I think the reason why my parents were able to follow through, it's because of that. So that's
good.
where my side is.
Yes.
Now, sige, let's talk about AI. Oh, by the way, how much time do we have, Baba? Oh my gosh. That's
2
really
minutes.
how we enjoy the conversation. So,
We're yappers, guys.
Yes.
We are yappers.
yes. Sige, I'll move na lang. We will not talk about artificial intelligence anymore. I was about to go that route. Good thing that I checked for the time, no? So before we wrap up, no, I think you talk about your personal sacrifices. Okay. Have you ever, before the last few questions, have you ever made a mistake that hurt someone that you love? In the course of being a leader. In the course of being a leader.
Siyempre, no one is perfect. It's si Hansan, yung mga mistakes mo.
Oh,
Could you go first? I'm trying to think
Yeah,
of
I'm
one.
trying to think as well.
Me too.
Mga perfect. That's not true, guys. Medyo foggy man good siya. It's a curveball na question.
Because nobody's perfect.
Yeah, nobody's perfect. And we've
Yes.
made so many mistakes along the lines of leadership, Jude. Unsa man?
And that hurt the person or the people you love. Maybe it would be your parents, it would be your friends, it might be your professor. But somewhere along the way, you made a like, oh my gosh, what was that?
Maybe in my case, like when it comes to my friends, they always show up to my campaigns. They always showed up during my candidacies. But there have been times where I wasn't able to show up for their times, where I wasn't able to show support for them because I had to sacrifice my time for them for my organizational work. And that's something that I always talk to them about very transparently. Although I talk about it transparently, that doesn't make how they feel about it any less valid, but at least I had to explain to them why I had to make that decision. Pero now that I'm no longer at college, I always try to make time for them. I always try to catch up with them just to compensate for the time that we lost for each other because of my organizational involvement. So I guess that's it.
Siguro, now I have an answer. Gusto I'm laughing. Siguro for me, this is something that I realized during the typhoon, during Typhoon Tino. Throughout my years in council or as an activist, I mentioned earlier na I rarely get to talk to my mom. I rarely get to talk to my family. I rarely get to answer their calls, especially since they live so far away. And that's because like I'm always like working. I'm always in meetings or doing something related to work. And sometimes like they call me often, and then like I answer. I'm in a meeting. I tell them na, oh, pwede later na lang because I'm in a meeting, and then once the meeting ends, tulog ako diretso because it's so tiring. And then during the typhoon, when it hit parts of Manila, and my sister is in Manila right now, and Iloilo, I went crazy trying to call them. I went crazy trying to hear from them. And if dili sila mag-answer kay mag-worry jud ko. And then that's when I realized na okay, maybe not the best choice. Maybe not the best choice. So ayun na maybe I have to make time for the people around me, and that's important. I think that's something that so many leaders have to remember. Na yes, the work is so very important, but in order to keep yourself sane, in order to keep yourself grounded, you need a strong support system. And I'm so
Yes.
grateful that my friends and my family are very supportive of what I do as an activist.
And sige, you want to add
Sorry.
something?
Speaking of support system, I know I made mention that, like there have been times that I'm pretty sure my barkada has been hurt of me like not showing up for them. But in spite of those things, they always showed up for me. It wouldn't have been possible for me to graduate in flying colors without them understanding my situation. In fact, I was only able to graduate from my program without compromising my grades because they always gave me notes. They still showed up for me even when there were tasks that I couldn't do. They made sure to do it for me, which was very sweet of them, by the way. So that's why I would like to take this opportunity to shout out to my barkada. There's 14 of them, so I'm not gonna name each and every single one of them, but I am very grateful for them, and I wouldn't have made it this far if it weren't for their support and understanding of the work that I do. In a way, they have they have the qualities of an activist as much as I do. So that's something that I am very proud of.
Well, I enjoyed this conversation so much that I lost track of the time. But before we go, and you can see the prompters now being prepared now. But before we go, what's one thing that, again, I'm also 5 years older than you, just kidding. But on a serious note, what one thing about your generation, Gen Z, no, that you want older generation, where I belong, no, would appreciate?
You want to answer?
Ikaw. For me, siguro to be more accepting of social issues right now. Like when we talk about topics like kanang the LGBT, divorce, abortion,
So Jibril.
Soji bill. These are so important. These are discussions that we have to really, really talk about, especially now na we can see, especially now in an age of so much technology. Makita jud nato nga these issues are so very important. For example, divorce, violence against women and children. It exists and it continues to happen. It happens. It can happen everywhere, Jude. It can happen in the streets. It can happen in our homes, and it can happen in our classrooms. And so often, victims of violence against women and children are kanang caught struggling in their own homes, and which reflects the need for a divorce bill. Kay kanang dili man ni siya just a matter of religion. It is human lives at stake. For example, Soji Pod, there are so many rights that are being compromised because there's so much hatred towards being queer. And I do not like that. Syempre, no one does. What else? Unsa pa jud?
Siguro I can speak on a specific issue. It's more on a general scale. I would say one thing that I would ask the older generations is to let Gen Z participate in making the future that they will inherit.
True.
Because I understand that the status quo may be comfortable for so many people right now, but the thing is, we want to improve. We want to have a better future that we're about to have, especially as people who are going to be part of society as professionals in the future, and of course as future government officials for that matter, because the situation that we have right now is not exactly the best, and I guess this is where the youth's optimism and ambition comes into the picture. If we have the optimism that we in changing whatever the status quo right now is, we can definitely achieve it, because one thing that the youth I think is very distinctive for is our determination, our youthful energy to pursue the things that we want to pursue. And if the youth wants to talk about issues that we're currently facing, let them. In fact, let them contribute into resolving these issues, because we're not just fighting for you, we're also fighting for the things that we're about to have.
If I may add to what Hans said, students are often left out in so many decision-making bodies. I'll make this quick, don't worry. Ayun,
No.
we're often left out in so many decision-making bodies, and this was seen especially during the aftermath of the earthquakes and the typhoon. So many student councils were not included in the decision-making processes that their admins created in making policies and kanang action plans in the aftermath of the calamities that surfaced sa Cebu. And it's something that's so common, not just in USC, but in so many universities. That's why we had to go to so many lengths. We had to go to CHED, we had to visit the mayor in order for our demands to be heard. And it is high time for our institutions to recognize that students must have a voice in policies and in decisions that ultimately affect them. Kana jud ang importante, especially now. Kano,
Sige, obviously there's going to be parts 2 and 3, no? Given how we enjoyed so much the conversation and the topics also that you wish for
Yes.
older generations where I belong,
Wah.
please, no, would also have with younger generation like you. So thank you very much for your time
Thank
today.
Thank you.
Thank
We
you.
enjoyed
Really
it.
appreciate it.
We had fun.
Oh, so am I. So yeah. So as we wrap up today's conversation, it's clear that leadership is never just about title or age. It's about choices, integrity, empathy, and the courage to act even when it's hard. So we'd like to thank our guest Hans Balila and Maui Cruz for sharing their honest experiences. And as we go through the Christmas season, let's carry this spirit of giving, reflection, and responsibility into the new year. So I'm DJ Moises. Thank you for joining us today. Thank God it's Friday. Happy holidays!
Happy holidays.
Daghang salamat.